Shalom to our Israel Brief family and community. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, where you check in with me every Monday to Thursday for your top stories making headlines in Israel. And of course, today we are a little bit earlier than usual because I'm heading out on location. But here at the Israel Brief, we promise you to bring you those top stories, and bring you those top stories we will. It is day 228 of Israel's war with Hamas, and let's take a look at those stories that are dominating the headlines. Yesterday, I announced that the ICC, this is the International Criminal Court, had announced that they were going to pursue warrants of arrest for Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as Hamas leaders Sinwar, Khaled Mashal and Mohammed al-Def. Now, apart from, of course, the egregious need to prosecute Israel's leaders, what is really absolutely outrageous is the moral equivalence that the ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan is drawing between the democratic leaders of a sovereign state who are prosecuting a war in defense of a gross genocidal massacre committed by international terror organization Hamas. As you can imagine, this has been met with an absolute outcry, not just here in Israel, where President Herzog called this beyond outrageous. Opposition party leader Benny Gantz called it a crime against humanity. The Prime Minister himself has called this a new type of anti-Semitism. And you can actually hear while I'm speaking, these are alerts for drones that are being fired into Israeli territory. So this is still going on. And now we have an international court wanting to prosecute Israel. So what has been the international reaction? President Biden has roundly condemned it, saying there is absolutely no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken released a very strong statement last night condemning the ICC. And in the statement, he said the following, and I'm going to read to you directly from his statement. He said, "There are also deeply troubling process questions. Despite not being a member of the court, Israel was prepared to cooperate with the prosecutor. In fact, the prosecutor himself was scheduled to visit Israel as early as next week to discuss the investigation and hear from the Israeli government. The prosecutor's staff was supposed to land in Israel today to coordinate the visit. Israel was informed they did not board their flight around the same time that the prosecutor went on cable television to announce the charges. These and other circumstances call into question the legitimacy and credibility of this investigation." That's from the U.S. Secretary of State. Now, Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, which is the foundation document of the ICC, so a question of jurisdiction remains. However, as with the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, we know that this does not necessarily be about the facts on the ground. This is about political moves by certain elements pushing an agenda, and this is a need to paint Israel as a war criminal. Other countries reacted strongly. Italy, Germany, the United Kingdom, who were very quick out the block to condemn the ICC. Hungary, as well as Czech Republic, roundly condemned it, saying there is absolutely no equivalence between Hamas and Israel. France said that they will support it on the grounds of supporting the independence of the judiciary, and Hamas have denounced it, saying that they are arresting the victims and drawing an equivalence with the executioners. You can't make that up, really. You can't make that up, but that's from Hamas. And 106 Israeli lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, both coalition and opposition, have signed a declaration of condemnation. So we will be covering this. We will be keeping you updated on the procedures there. Yesterday, we also brought you the news that Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi and the foreign minister, as well as two other dignitaries, were killed when their helicopter crashed en route to Azerbaijan. Now, yesterday in the UN Security Council, at the behest of Russia, China and Algeria, members of the Security Council, including the Deputy Ambassador from the United States to the UN Security Council, stood for a moment of silence. This is absolutely outrageous. Would they stand for a moment of silence for Hitler? And Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, stood with a sign saying, "The butcher of Tehran will not be missed." Raisi was known as the butcher of Tehran. Under his leadership, 26,000 people were executed. The Iranian regime embarked on a campaign against women. We've seen the summary execution of people who have been protesting the regime with sham trials that lasted minutes, not to mention the members of the LGBTQ community, some as young as 14, who have been executed. So while Israel has emphatically stated we were not involved in that incident at all, I don't think anyone who has a respect for human rights will be mourning Ibrahim Raisi. 160 US lawyers have written to US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, as well as US Congress, demanding an investigation into South Africa's bringing a case against Israel at the ICJ. Citing the Magnitsky Act, which prohibits significant acts or acts of significant corruption in accepting bribes, the lawyers have asked Congress to investigate South Africa because they say South Africa has accepted bribes from Iran to bring a case accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. And what is very interesting is South Africa is one of the only countries on the record to support the execution or the statement of issuing warrants of arrest for the Prime Minister. Of course, no shockers there. And they say that just days after the horrific attacks of October the 7th, South Africa's Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor not only spoke to Ismail Haniyeh and in a show of solidarity, but also flew to Iran. This is just days before the application was made at the ICJ, and this was actually brought up on Friday by Israel's team at the ICJ, saying that there's a very, very strange coincidence. So let's see if Congress are going to follow up and investigate South Africa for gross corruption in accepting bribes. And finally, the world had objected to Israel's ground incursion in Rafah, citing a humanitarian disaster. But yesterday, the IDF, and this has been confirmed by UN agencies in Rafah, have said that nearly 1 million civilians have successfully been evacuated from Rafah to the humanitarian zones at Al-Mawasi and Tel Al-Sultan, away from the concentrated areas of combat. Israel retains control of about 30 to 40% of Rafah, and about 60 to 70% of civilians have been successfully evacuated. Meanwhile, sources told the Washington Post yesterday that President Biden will not object to a Israeli ground incursion in Rafah. It will not be a widespread incursion. It will be very, very precise and pinpointed. And as we speak, more and more humanitarian aid continues to flow into the Gaza Strip. So those are today's top stories. Now let's get to the audience question. And this is such an apt question. It was by somebody who wishes to remain anonymous. And they are asking, why does there seem to be these purposeful legal acts against Israel in international courts? Excellent question. This has been a strategy or an agenda item for several years now. The countries know, and BDS and Israel's detractors know, that you cannot defeat Israel militarily. This country is too strong. So they are applying what we call lawfare. They are looking at legal ways to limit Israel's ability to successfully defend themselves, or as some of the international lawyers acting on behalf of Israel have said, this is a campaign of delegitimization against the state of Israel. You can't defeat us militarily, so they will look for the legal ways to do that. So very, very apt question. And if you want your questions asked, please don't forget to pop them in the comments section below. So those are top stories making headlines. It has been a whopper of a news week. Don't forget to check in with me again tomorrow. But in the meantime, check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook page is at Lottle's site. Our YouTube channel is at The Israel Brief right here. And all you need to do is hit that red subscribe button. We are on Twitter at Lay of the Land. At Lay of the Land 5, I forgot for a second, and on Facebook at Lottle's site. Guys, God bless you. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Come at me with your questions and your homework. I really, really love it, and I'll catch you again tomorrow. Bye for now.